Hey, and welcome back to another episode of Tea Time with Mother and Crone. We've got a lot to talk about. A lot of things have happened. We got a lot of stuff that's upcoming. So I'm going to bring on my cohort in crime, my Linda, and she's going to tell us what we have in our cup this week. I'm a little scared. What is it?
So this week is a little different. So instead of herbs and flowers, we're doing birch, as in the tree. So birch bark is actually another thing, like we always talk about medicinal and magical. And believe it or not, you can use it for different things. So as far as now, you can make a birch leaf oil or a salve. Um, it is good for inflammation and pain, which I need that.
Yeah.
Um, and also, let me just go down. You can use it as a tea in a shot form. So you can take it like a shot of tea. Um,
That sounds like
so
our game.
I know. And
We
what's
have a great game with this one.
Yeah, and it has it's said to have like a tasty wintergreen sort of taste, or flavor, minty flavor.
Actually, that
Um,
might be the leaf. Tastes
yeah,
that
yep,
way,
it
the
is.
leaves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you can use the leaves as well, but some information. So the bark has many uses in survival, from paper to tanning leather, which I thought was interesting,
Interesting.
because I never knew that. But you can also use it medicinally. So you can use the bark and leaves. And they have, I don't know if I can blow this up, but it's common. So you'll see, like, this is the leaf of a birch. So
It's
it's
almost
pretty
a heart
common.
shape.
Yep. Yep, exactly. Almost a heart shaped. And then it has, you'll see these buds on
Mhm.
the ends. And then, of course, if you're not familiar with what they look like, they're the little whitish gray looking ones. I don't know how clear that is with
Yeah,
my light.
that's real clear. That's a good, great picture, actually. It's real
Okay.
clear because you can see it. They're like the silver gray colored. Um,
Right.
it was one of the first tree that my Cub Scouts ever learned because they went foraging. Because in Cub Scouts we take the boys out and they do the foresty thing, and they have
Mhm.
to find the leaves of different trees and explain what they are. And the easiest way for them to do that was I sent them out for birch leaves, and they bring back a birch twig, and if you pound it,
Mm.
boil it, add a little sugar to it. You got to be careful because it does contain a little bit of a poison to it, and it's not strong. But if you drink too much of it, it can upset your stomach. And it actually is where we get birch beer from.
Oh,
So
nice.
we would make a little root beer, a little saucepan, boil the leaf a little bit, just so the boys got an idea. And once they all had a little like tablespoon of it, they were like, oh. So every time we went camping, the boys knew exactly where the birch trees were. Man, they
Right.
found them every time because they make them birch beer, and that's where you get it from. So it's actually a drink. Now, of course, when you buy it in the store, it's been, pasteurized and cleaned up and all. But if you do it camping wise, I will tell you not to drink more than like an ounce or two. But it's a great thing if you go camping to pound you pound one of those limbs a little bit, a small limb, and you pound it and then you boil it, and add a little sugar to it. It does have the flavor of a birch, like a birch beer.
That's interesting.
The boys get
And
a kick out of it.
yeah, and you guys will have to, don't mind me. I'll be adjusting because I'm going through some really bad back issues right now. So I apologize. Now, some varieties of the birch do not have peeling bark, but the vast majority of it does. So you'll have some that they'll chip off. I think it's like a pine tree that's like that. They'll chip off like those big chunks of it, almost looks like mulch. Um, but these are kind of appealing. Now, the birch leaves, buds, and bark have powerful anti-inflammatory properties. So
Oh,
I need that.
you need to
It's
know that.
also, yeah, also said to be good for cramps, skin conditions, and gout.
Ooh, I should
And
have known that a few months ago.
I know, I thought about that when I read this. I was like, damn. And it's also good as a diuretic and cleansing the kidneys and treating urinary tract infections, UTIs. Um, Topically, it is said to help eczema, muscle aches, and arthritis.
Oh, shit. That's got
And
some good stuff in it then. I just thought it was for birch beer to drink. I mean, I didn't know it was all this good stuff.
I know. And then it also says young shoots and leaves are known to have a laxative effect and can be used to make a wound poultice or salve. In folk medicine, birch is also among several trees said to help with hair loss.
Huh, that's interesting.
Um, and then the other thing it says added bonus birches are also common hosts for incredibly versatile medicinal mushrooms like the birch bracket polypore, which it doesn't have a picture of. At first, I thought it was a. The mushroom can be used as a bandage, immune boosting tea, or as a powerful salve ingredient. Now, it does say main complication risk. So, again, as we always say, check with your doctor medications that you're taking. So, it says while generally safe, birch may increase sodium retention. So, use caution if you have high blood pressure. Um, and that's some of the main things with birch. Now you have some cool magical information, and I have a few magical things that I'll chime in with, but I want you to talk about what you have over there.
Well, I fell back to my mainstay. Poor Scott. I've used Scott so much that Scott's falling apart. I've actually had to tape pages in my book, but that's okay. It
That
was
just means it's
interesting.
loved.
It's loved. It is more than loved. I thought it was interesting because it's used for protection, exorcism, and purification, which
Mhm.
all three tie together. But
Right.
this is cute. You really get mad at your spouse. This is a great one. Birch twigs have been used to exorcise spirits by gently striking possessed people.
Not gently striking. So
Well, gently can be, interpreted.
right, right.
Okay, depends on. That's all I'm thinking. You beat this. You're there. You
Right.
go. The tree is used for protection, and Russians, this is interesting, used to hang a red ribbon around the stem of the birch to rid themselves of the evil eye. Now, Italians, honestly, the evil eye is Italian because you can actually buy the gold little hands that go like this.
Yeah.
That's protection against the evil eye in Italy, along with
Oh,
the horn of plenty. So you'll see a lot of Italians wearing a necklace with a symbol like this and a horn of plenty. So it's to get rid of the
wow.
evil eye. So I thought that was interesting. And the strangest thing was it says traditional broom of witches was made of birch twigs.
Woo.
I always thought it was cinnamon because mine's cinnamon. This one's cinnamon here. And I thought it was other trees like elder or something. I didn't know birch was in there. And it
That
says
might be because it's the cinnamon might just be because it smells
because it
delicious.
smells delicious. I know. It also says that a child's cradle, was once manufactured from birch wood to protect the helpless charges. I thought that was so special.
That
It
is.
is that's well, that's a mom thing. We get into that. It is feminine, and I love the other folk name. It's Lady of the Woods.
I
Yeah,
love
that
that.
sounds like a song, Lady of
But
the Woods.
also like with the picture that I showed, like a birch forest, I mean, that looks pretty damn magical to me.
That silver bark, when it catches in like
It
early
does.
morning light or evening light. I used to do a lot of camping with scouts. That is the most beautiful thing because it like almost bounces off and reflects it. So it gives
Yeah.
it like this glow, and it's really magical. But I just thought that was cool. And of course, the deity is one that you would love. It's Thor. So you're right there, girl. Yeah.
Yeah.
Planet is Venus, element is water. But I was really surprised to hear about, the Russians using it for the evil eye to hang a red ribbon. I don't, if anybody knows the correspondence there between a red ribbon and the birch tree, like why, that would be really cool to know if somebody could let us know. Um,
Yeah.
because color always has something to do with it, as well as, why a birch tree, because it's silver and the red and the silver go together or whatever. But
Right.
that was pretty cool. And I was like, especially for the cradles, I was like, oh, there goes my
I
heart.
know.
But
That is cool.
poor old Scott gets used to death. Everybody asks what standard books you have in your library. If you don't have a Scott Cunningham, I can't call you a witch. I'm sorry, because I have
Yeah, I mean,
the
he's
three different
definitely,
books that Scott, and now I understand those three books come in one book. Somebody was
yeah.
telling me that all three of them now you can get in one edition. Um,
Sorry, this is live, so I'm having to adjust.
you're going to see us live. You're going to see us make mistakes. So I have this poor thing is 1985. I mean, I have it's torn and everything, but this one, the witches, herbs, brews, and oils, and the crystals. Evidently, you can get all three in one book. So,
Wow,
yeah, somebody told me they had it the other day. I was on another Zoom, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I have all three in one." I was like, "Really?" Because I mean,
that's cool.
we won't discuss how many years ago I bought this book. It's been used and abused and loved. Any book that's not got, a few pages messed up in it has never been used.
And seriously, if you do not have Scott Cunningham, you need to get him
It's
because,
kind of like Ray Buckland's Big Blue Book.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
it's, you have it because that's where you find everything. But no, that's pretty interesting about the birch. And like I said, if you live on the eastern seaboard, up north, they're very prevalent. Maryland and up, you'll find birch trees everywhere. Um, they have a sweet smell to them. If you walk past them, they have a musky smell to them.
Yeah.
It's kind
Now
of a scent.
I had a few things I wanted to that I found as well. Um, so as one of the first plants to sprout new leaves in the spring, birch has been long associated with renewal.
That
Um,
would make sense if it's the first one. Yeah.
Yeah. It says birch is extremely important in Celtic, European, and Native American folklore. Birch is linked to the Norse rune Berkana, and I'm probably saying that wrong, Berkana. You know, I always have to give that disclaimer. And also to Beith, Beith, the first letter of the Ogham alphabet. So I thought that was interesting. Now, birch trees are found all over the northern hemisphere, thriving in all but the coldest areas of the north. Most people recognize birch, as we talked about already, the white papery bark, grayish brown. It's kind of like that silvery, you know.
When you see it, you know it. It's kind of like that. It stands right out.
And it always looks like to me, I always thought that these kind of look like eyeballs. Like,
They do. And
I
if
mean,
you see them at night,
yeah.
yeah, they can be a little disturbing.
Now it says, where did I find it? So, okay, birch, we already said, is a natural diuretic. Um, Birch extract has a fresh wintergreen aroma and was once a popular flavoring for chewing gum and soft drinks.
Yeah, birch beer.
Yep. And then it says, ask your grandpa. Now, birch sap is a reliable winter food source for native peoples of Siberia and North America. So I thought that was interesting.
Hmm.
Um, Birch is also prized as firewood because it burns without popping, even when harvested fresh. Um,
Interesting. It doesn't pop then, huh?
yeah, it says doesn't pop. It says you can obtain birch in many different forms, from freshly gathered twigs to firewood to fine furniture, veneers. Um, Now it says you can also get them from natural health suppliers. Um, and you can also get birch paper. So what we talked about, the cool thing with the birch is that it's sort of that peel away bark, and you can use the birch paper is strips of dried bark, and so it says you can use it. It's valuable for spellcraft.
I
So
was going to say that would make an amazing thing to write a spell on and then burn it.
yes, like your full moon intentions too. Um, It says birch essential oil is also available and is usually steam distilled from the pulverized bark. Um, Synthetic birch fragrances rarely get it right. So again, it smells like a minty mouthwash, sandalwood, or tar. Oh, you froze again. Um,
I'm always freezing.
but I can hear. Oh, now I see you. See, it's live. Just roll with
It's live. Go, roll with the punches.
it. And I just wanted to touch on a couple other things. The birch trees are considered pioneer species, rapidly colonizing land that has been leveled by fire or clear cutting. And now in magic, it's traditionally used for, we already talked about the witch's besom, but also for Beltane fires, maypoles, and Yule logs.
Yule logs, really? We're getting there. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's also a traditional Wiccan rhyme: birch into the fire goes in sign of what the lady knows. So that goes back to the Lady of the Woods thing. Um, and then we already talked about, now it's also linked not only Thor, but also linked to the goddesses Frigg, Freya, Adana, and Hel. Which Hel, if those of you that don't know, is like the Norse Hecate. And so she's
Basically,
the
yeah.
goddess of the underworld. She's like half dead and half alive. So you'll see her kind of like dark. Look it up, Hel. Um, and then psychic protection, which we talked about. The it offers courage and protection, and so we talked about the. Now, I thought this was interesting that you would find, or you would find interesting rather. It's also related to the white maidens, aka fairies,
Ooh.
that haunt the forests of Germanic folklore. The birch spirit is a larger, older being that even these great ladies, older being, even older than the fairies.
Oh,
Um, nor does birch easily fit into any one of the Wiccan concepts of the goddess, so it's all over. Now, birch has the fresh innocence of the maiden, the generosity of the mother, and the silent courage of the crone.
there we go.
It has a deep, long relationship with humans as a provider and guide. So I thought that was pretty cool. I
It's
mean, it goes on to
interesting that they
say,
use it for Yule.
yeah, um, I mean, it makes sense when you think about it, though, but sometimes you just don't think about things until,
Well,
uh,
seriously, when you start burning wood, if anybody has done campfires, seriously, different woods smell different when you're burning them out in your backyard. You'll get a, like if you throw a cedar log in there, you know you've got cedar. But
right.
birch does have a very specific scent when it's burning like that, and it's a refreshing scent. It's not one of those overcoming. It's just light and it's refreshing if you smell it burning. It's
Yeah,
funny,
and
but I never knew it was used for Yule log. I may have
yeah, and what it says is, so the last thing about the Yule log part, because it's way down in a different section, it says a birch log burned at Yule will bring luck and prosperity for the arrival of spring. And then if that's not practical, apartment dwelling witches can use a white candle wrapped in birch paper or scented with birch.
even if you did your Yule log, like a lot of us do the log that we put on display, we're not
Right.
going to burn it. But that white birch, because it's white, the bark is white, and when you start to decorate it with some green and
I
some
know.
and red candles, that it's really outstanding.
Yeah, so that
So
is birch.
I'm telling you, that's something you might want to think about for Yule to do your Yule log with. That would be really cool. Even if you don't burn it, if you just make it to sit in your house, because I have a log I bring out every year and I decorate. I
Yeah.
don't necessarily burn it. I'm in Florida. It's like
I
Well,
know.
I'm on the West Coast, so trust
Well, I
me.
was gonna say, I'm excited. Oh my gosh, it was, I don't know how it was over there today, but it was such beautiful weather this morning. It felt like a fall. Like it was windy and low 70s. It was
Well,
beautiful.
it was 97 here and it was pouring down to rain all day. We had thunderstorms all day.
We had that. That was us yesterday and the day before.
Yeah. Being on the West Coast and East Coast is like being in two parts of the country, even though we're
It,
4 hours
wait,
apart.
it messes with me every time.
I know. It's just so weird because I'm over here and I'll be telling her, oh my God, it's 900 degrees. And she's like, I'm freezing. And I'm like, we're
I
four
know.
hours
Granted, I have
apart.
not said I was freezing anytime recently, but come winter time, I will.
And your winter, I don't really have. You guys get much colder because of the Atlantic Ocean. I get that. I think our winter last year lasted 2 or 3 days.
Oh
And
man,
yeah,
yeah.
we
I
were
mean,
done.
there was a period I think in January we were like in the 30s for a week.
Yeah, you guys got really cold.
We
We shoot. Last year, November, we were at the actually in the bay. We were swimming. We were in the Gulf. So it's unbelievable. We're just a few hours apart, but because of the Gulf and the Atlantic, we get completely different weather conditions.
I know it's so bizarre, but yeah.
It really.
Um, but that was really interesting about Birch, and
Well,
I
like
feel
I
like
said, I didn't know anything about that. I know the birch beer because doing the scouts, that was you have to keep the kids interested, and one way to keep them interested is if you do something like make something they can eat or do, they remember it because after that group of boys told the next group of boys, oh, wait till she takes you out, and you get to make root beer. And the boys are
yeah,
like, how do we make root beer? And it was like, okay, you gotta go find a birch tree. And they come back with it, and for years after that they remember it. I just thought it was a cool thing. I didn't know it had all that stuff going with it, but I may have to
well,
get a birch
also
log for Yule.
I know, and also for the scent profile, it's wintergreen, and then root beer was actually one of the things it said.
Well, I can tell you when you make the birch berry, we smashed it, and did it and boiled it. It really tasted. It was like amazing. It had this root beer taste to it, and the boys were just like they were beside themselves. They thought it was the greatest thing in the world. You just
Yeah,
have to be really careful because it's not pasteurized. I mean, when you do this, you do it so each one takes like a little sip and that's it. You're
mhm,
not going to sit there and drink it, but it is a fun thing to do. And trying to teach your children nature, and it's nature isn't like when I was growing up everybody knew stuff like that, but
right.
we don't do it anymore, so kids don't know this. But to teach them the different trees and the different stuff like that, you try to tie in all sorts of craziness. Like there's a pine tree that has like three pine needles on each little piece, and it's called a loplolly pine. Loplolly pine. It's three words, and that's how we taught the boys to find the loplolly pine tree.
Wow. Yeah.
And that they would go into the forest because you have to know different things. Boy Scouts is more about being on your own in the environment and surviving. So you
Right.
learn these survival skills, and one of them is learning the different trees because, again, with a birch tree, if you're in trouble, it can help you, with wounds. It can help you
Mhm.
with all sorts of things. Get rid of inflammation and all this. Years ago, when I was a kid growing up, we all knew this stuff. I mean, it was
Right.
part of general knowledge, but it's like everybody moved to cities and you didn't have trees. So, or out, in nature. I grew up on a farm. So, I mean,
Right. Right.
you had
Yeah.
everything
You don't.
there.
Yeah, you don't see it. You don't see it as often in like, well, here. I mean, it's building all the time.
Right. And a lot of places like state forests and stuff, when you go in, you cannot, cut on a tree. You can't do any of that. So you have to find fallen trees. You got to be careful there because they got fungus growing on them. Is fungus edible? It's
Yeah.
all this craziness. So it's not like it was years ago. But to learn, I mean, we're at a point now because trust me, COVID taught us a lot of things. Oops, Melinda, I lost you. If you could unmute, there you go, you're back.
In here.
Okay. But if, like, COVID has taught us, we need to start doing a little bit of our own gardening and a little bit of our own growing, a little bit of our own food, and just becoming more self-reliant than we were, because we're finding out the people that we needed the most were the frontline workers, the grocery
Yeah.
store clerks and that kind of stuff. So if you start learning a little bit now, you can teach your kids a little bit. So survival skills aren't all that bad. I mean, you don't have to go whole hog and have, 10 years worth of survival crap in your basement, but
No.
you can learn a few little things and remember a few little things. If you go on nature walks with your kids, knowing a little bit of stuff like that. Um,
Yeah.
First of
Absolutely.
all, you look absolutely super mom, because you can say, "Oh yeah, that's a lollipop pine, honey. It's got three things in each one." And you go on, and these kids are thinking, "Wow, mom knows everything." So yeah, kudos, mom. But just learning this kind of stuff, it gives us a fallback. If you really get
Yeah.
desperate, you have something to fall back on. And
Absolutely.
I'm a big proponent of, at least you might not do it every day, but I grew up on a farm. Am I growing stuff? I'm growing rosemary out here now like crazy. But am I growing much? No, I'm just doing a little bit of gardening here and there. Could I? Oh, hell yeah, because I knew how to do it. So if I had to, I could take my butt outside and I could grow it. So it's that kind of thing. And I think that's great that we're all getting back to that a little bit more. During World War II, that was the big thing, was to have a victory garden. And I grew up, my dad was in Korea. And again, it was another big thing to have your own little garden. I grew up, even though I grew up on a farm, when I moved to suburbia, I took
Mhm.
a piece of my backyard and I grew my tomatoes, my peppers, and I even had corn growing in my backyard. My neighbor thought I was nuts because they'd never seen it
It
before.
would be cool to have corn. Now, speaking of all of this harvesting and corn and camping, we are, so the topic for today is we're going to talk about Mabon. So, Mabon, um, we are going to possibly have a guest host next week. So instead of spanning it over a couple weeks like we originally planned, we're just gonna talk about it so you can get kind of a jump start because it'll be here before you know it.
Oh my
The
goodness.
the 22nd this year. So
This whole
uh,
year has just went, I'm like,
I know,
wow, where did the
I
year
know.
go?
And
Well,
like you said, I think, it would easily be considered the which is Thanksgiving.
it's called the Witches' Thanksgiving. It's our second harvest festival. So this is a time, and if you harvest, I grew up in West Virginia, so I was a little bit more north. This is the harvest where you start bringing in a lot of the vegetables. The green beans are coming in.
Mhm.
Your second corn is coming in. Your second wheat and barley are coming in. And your squash is starting to come in. It might not be in yet, but it's starting to get there. Your early squash, your bigger squash, like your pumpkins and all, will probably be, next month, but you'll still get a lot of that in there. So it's our
Yeah.
second harvest festival. And a lot of people are like, well, people forget about Mabon. And I feel really bad because to me, it's a harvest time. So that's a big time. If you grow up on a farm, there are certain times of the year when everybody gets together and helps everybody else out.
Right.
So this would be the time when we would be going through for the second hay harvest for the cattle.
Hmm.
So this is when we're taking the hay in, we're baling it up, and we're throwing it up in the loft because we're getting ready for winter. So we do
Right.
it now, and our last one, we barely, rarely, rarely got much in October. So September was our big time. So
Mm.
this is when all the neighbors would get together, and you would go to this farm, go to this farm, go to this farm. So you might hit 3 farms in a week.
Right.
We would be They would cut it down, but I usually, I drove the truck. They would throw the hail bales in the back, and we'd, take it up and throw it up in the loft. But harvest is very important because it's not just physical, but the symbolic of harvest. We're
Right.
starting to prepare ourselves for winter coming in. So we're kind of getting rid of the stuff we really are not going to, it's not going to make it through to winter.
Right, right.
So this is a good time to go through and maybe do a little bit of fall cleaning rather than spring cleaning.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up because I do that as well because, and if you think about it, it kind of makes sense. So if those of us witches that do truly consider Samhain our new year, rather than January 1st, that's a perfect, and of course I still, celebrate the new year because it's a new calendar month, but um, spiritually speaking, it's a great idea to do that cleansing and declutter and sort of ring in the new year, so to speak, with Samhain being the next holiday. And that's, a holiday that where we honor our ancestors. So it kind of is such a great beginning to kind of, declutter.
Right, and this is a time of year where you've started, the kids have started back to school. Usually by September, they're all in school if they're going to go. And now you can start actually going through some of the clothes they couldn't wear from the summertime. And they're not going to make it till next year because I don't know any kid who doesn't grow from year to year. So
No,
unless you're keeping it for the next one in line, you've got clothes to get rid of. And this is a great time. The temperature starts to drop a little bit where you can actually go outside and not die. So this
no.
is a great time when people start to have their yard sales. And this is times when you'll notice that the thrift stores are getting pretty full because you've gone through the kids' clothes for school and they couldn't
And
fit in half the stuff from last year.
I have to do that. Oh my gosh, I'm dreading it.
Oh, I know. And that used to be my
I have,
biggest, like, oh,
yeah, and I have two, and I'm just like,
oh, I
and
know.
Fiona's is worse because she's smaller, so she has more clothes. You know what I mean? And it's like, but most of them are she's way outgrown because she's growing like a weed
And
now. Mhm.
this is a really good time because we witches need to start conserving, and this is a really good time to do meetups to switch off clothes. If you know somebody's got one younger than you or smaller than you can say, here, 4 million clothes. Um, just to it's sharing the wealth is how I look at it. And your yard sales, this is a great time. It's cool enough now. It's going to start cooling down to where you can have those weekend yard sales.
And
And
the
for
perks,
witches, yard sales are almost as good as thrift stores.
I know, and I have had so many friends that say, "Oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe the things I found," and I'm like, "Man, I cannot believe." And I love yard sales, but it's like for some reason, like I don't ever think about it, and because I never ever have cash on me, so it's just like, and of course I could just go to the ATM, but it's just like I see the signs, but it's like I don't have cash, and I never think about just, hey, I'm gonna go get cash, and we're just gonna drive around and look for you know what I mean?
Well,
And
a
I
lot of communities have, I love the big community yard sales. Like when the
Yeah.
whole block does it,
Mhm.
that's when you go because that's when you can get your good buys. But
Yeah,
with
yeah, you don't see that a ton here. You
no,
see it if you,
that's a northern thing, I think, where
yeah,
the whole
yeah.
neighborhood does it. But
Now,
May
one
is
time,
coming up, and it's our Thanksgiving. So what are we giving thanks for?
exactly. Now, before we get into that, so I wanted to touch on the story of Mabon, and it's just a short little thing. So, again, as you said, it's the second harvest in Thanksgiving. So, the story is the goddess as harvest queen, radiant with plenty, light and dark are in balance, and the light is defeated as the horned god descends into the underworld. The god dies with the cutting of the last grain. And I wanted to include that because we had talked about before, the story, and we'll talk about it around Yule, with the Holly King and things like that, and the Horn God and all the
Holly
different things.
King and the Oak King.
Yep,
Battle it out.
the King. So I just wanted to include that story because it kind of,
This is one of those holidays that kind of gets brushed under the rug. You don't see a lot of witches participate. Everybody comes out at Samhain. Let's be perfectly honest. Samhain, everybody is there.
yeah.
There are certain holidays where everybody's there, and then there's some that just kind of slide in and slide out. And this is one of those that slides in and slides out.
Mhm.
If you want to make it your Thanksgiving, that's awesome. Thanksgiving is 2 more months away, so you got plenty of time between the two that you can make it two separate holidays. It's not like it's going right into Thanksgiving.
Right.
Um, and this is time where don't do a turkey, do whatever local is.
Mhm.
Um, go to the local farmers markets because they're out and around. Get you some of the fresh stuff that's out now. You're going to find a few gourds, not a whole lot yet because it's not got there yet, but you'll find some of your squash, the
Mhm.
zucchinis out.
Yeah,
Of
hit
course.
the farmers market because
Oh yeah.
that's going to be seasonal. And that's another thing. So, um, some people, and I don't know if I have enough discipline, but it would certainly be smart, um, because it's not only a way to be frugal, but if you do seasonal eating, it's easier to eat more organically that way because you're not having to pay like the prices that are coming out of the how it's like price, how the price, like if you buy things out of season, it's nuts, like it's so
Oh,
expensive.
yeah. Even down here,
But
it surprised me because I thought Florida, being warm, would have fresh vegetables year round.
yeah, and so if you can eat seasonably, and this time of year is a great time where you want to get into like those soups and those stews and the different things, kind of getting you into that fall feel. Even though it's hot as hell still here in Florida, you know,
Well,
the
too, your
temperature
kids have gone
doesn't.
back to school. You're a little bit more now in a groove. Think
Right.
about it. Kids are back in. You're getting your game plan out now. You figured out the bus schedules and you figured out the pickup and drop off lines and all that
Mhm.
other stuff. So if you don't want to quote unquote be Thanksgiving, just make it you finally survived to this point. This is you finally got your game on. So let's celebrate the fact that okay, we're back in school and things are back on track again. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a Thanksgiving. Just you cook a few vegetables or have a few things that are seasonal.
Yes.
Take a walk in the woods. Walk around the neighborhood, if nothing else. Walk your dog, because goodness gracious knows your dog can use it. Um, get out there. And I love my roommate and I. She and I will sit on we have a front porch and we live in an older section of Florida. So most of the people are our age and they'll walk their dogs up and down. We always keep milk bones for our neighbors' dogs and cat treats for the neighbors' cats. We don't have any animals.
Yeah.
But they all stop at our house because the dogs know that they're going to get a treat if they come to our house. But this is a time where reconnect with your neighborhood. It's not 900 degrees outside. You can walk your dog, walk around the neighborhood.
Yeah, it is starting to get cooler. Like I said today, I was so surprised this morning. Oh, it was one of those I got to sit on the porch and the wind was just whipping, but it was not like that hot sticky wind. It was cool because it was like low 70s.
Well,
Now, talking about so things like you had mentioned, how do we show things? So I wanted to touch on different things you can do. Um, you can reflect and give thanks for manifesting. Of course, people in general, just like you would a traditional Thanksgiving. But some other ideas that you can do for Mabon, you can get, and I actually do this every year with the kids. You can get crunchy leaves for your altar, like the big, maple leaf type
big
things,
ones, yeah.
and that's what I do. Like when fall comes around, I will look. Sometimes I'll see those great big leaves that have fallen on the floor, like the oak leaves that are the size of your hand. So sometimes I'll find some really cool looking leaves, or if I find like in Florida, we don't get the colors like up north. So it's usually just green, 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 green all year round. And there's certain species of trees that will turn like a orangish, but we don't get the super bright yellows and the super bright reds and the super bright oranges. Because I love that stuff. It's so beautiful, but we do not get that here.
No,
um,
this is the season. This is the only time I get homesick.
yeah.
The
Oh my God.
mountains. I
See,
miss my mountains this time of year. And it's true. They're beautiful this time of year. But you know what?
Yeah.
These are perfect teaching times. With your kids, you pick up a leaf. What leaf is this? What tree does it belong to? Little things like the birch. We just talked about it being silver and having this scent, and it
And
looks like this. Take your kids out, find a birch tree.
not only that, collecting acorns, and
First
nuts.
acorn of the year.
Yeah.
If you find the first acorn you find, you put it in your pocket, and it's to remind you from that little acorn a mighty oak tree grows. So you keep it. Now you can plant it and grow your tree, or you can hold on to it and just keep thinking about growing your own prosperity. So
Oh,
that is a way you grab that oak, that little acorn, because it came from the oak tree, and you hold on to it
I
in your
like that.
pocketbook, and you just remind yourself that, what I've planted this year. What am I planting? Especially with your kids, this is the harvest, so we're bringing in the food now, we're bringing in the stuff, we're not planting necessarily this time of year. So this is when you need to start with your kids, because you've got to build into Samhain. You don't want to spring Samhain on your kids and say all of a sudden, okay, we're going to celebrate the dead, because they're going to be like, what happened? But you
Right.
start explaining how the seasons wane and how things are slowing down. Even in the South, you'll find that we do have seasonal changes. It does
Right.
get cooler here a little bit. It goes from hell to mid hell, and then we go to
Right.
upper hell.
Now, now
I always
another
joke
thing you
about
can
that.
do is you can make your own smudge sticks and use orange peel and cinnamon. So if you wanted to couple that with sage or with like a little rope of sweetgrass, you could do that. Um, it's the season for, baking those warm pies and starting that cider, the hot apple cider.
Oh yeah, gotta
Um,
start that cider soon. Oh,
oh,
but this is a time where you start teaching your children about the cycle,
mhm.
about life and death. Um, Even with the younger kids, because they all get pets and they all die. Even
Right.
goldfish, the first pet most kid has is a goldfish or some kind of fish. So this gives you the chance to talk with them. It also gives you a chance to start prepping for Samhain. So you have this holiday, you're thankful for this. You might bring up you're thankful for your parents, your grandparents, your great grandparents, whoever came to this country to start your lineage here.
Right.
So you kind of preface it with that, and you kind of build into that. You don't want to hit a kid all of a sudden with like, yeah, we're going to celebrate everybody that died, because some kids just can't handle that.
No, yeah, you definitely
Yeah.
want to make sure it's age appropriate because
Right. And you build into it, because if you start talking at Thanksgiving about what you're thankful for, my mom and my dad, well, at my age, obviously my parents are dead. So, the children, my grandchildren, some of them did not meet my parents, which would be their great grandparents. So you give them a little info about who they are, where they came from, maybe a picture or two. You know,
yeah,
I went back to West Virginia a month ago. Sounds like forever. And I got a picture of my great grandparents on my
yeah,
grandmother's side, my father's mother's side, and it was really cool. I now have a picture of my great grandma and my great grandfather, and I never met them, but I got their picture hanging up on the wall now, and it was kind of very special because that's who I came from. So this is a time to do that with your kids. You're prefacing it to get to Samhain, so that when you hit Samhain and you start celebrating your ancestors, then they understand it.
you're
Most
for
cultures, there's very few. There's one culture I know that does it. The Latino culture celebrates the Day of the Dead, and they go to the grave sites. If any of you guys want to understand it, I recommend watching Coco on. It's a Pixar.
yes, so cute.
It's on Disney. I think it's Disney Plus. It might.
Yeah, everything's on Disney. I mean, if you have a Disney Plus, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
whatever. It's well worth watching no matter what your ethnic background is, because it explains how you keep ancestors alive. And I watched it with my nephew. My nephew's much younger. He's about 9, and he had to watch this show, and I was like, really? Um, Okay, because I
I still
watched.
haven't seen it, but I know it's cute. And like when we did the Disney on Ice, Coco came out, and it was really,
Well,
but I
it
haven't actually
really
seen
goes into a lot more detail than you realize. Now, he didn't pick up on a lot of it, but I did. And when he had questions, that's when you start, explaining things to them. Now, our ethnic background is not Latino.
it. Right.
Okay. His isn't, mine isn't. But
Mhm.
watching that, I was able to tie in Samhain with him.
That's really cool.
And he thought, and that was like 2 months ago, he thought that was the greatest thing. So, with the COVID scare, I had his older brother here for a week and a half, almost,
Right.
well, for 2 weeks because of the COVID thing going on. So I had his older brother here. So he said to me, he said, well, are we going to watch Coco for Samhain? Ooh,
That's cool
yes,
that he
maybe.
brought that up.
But it gives you the explanation that if you don't keep the ancestors alive and talk
Mhm.
about them, they do disappear. Now, of course, it's
Well,
much more prevalent on the movie screen how it happens, but in reality, if you don't talk about your ancestors and you don't celebrate your Thanksgivings and stuff like that, you do lose track of that. Who are you? Who do you belong to?
you really do. You really do. And there was a couple other things that I wanted to touch because I did find some cool things. Now, some other activities that you can do, like we said, you can do perform a Thanksgiving ritual. So you can do that, of course, to deity, but you can also include people that you want to do. You can meditate and reflect about the things and people that you have in your life, just like we went over. And it's also a good time to release things. So just like we talked about the decluttering, it's a good time to release what doesn't serve you. So, good time to do shadow work as we're starting to kind of wind down. Like winter is really good time for that. A lot of people are depressed and down. It has that stereotype of winter, the winter blues, but it's a really good time to take the opportunity to tap in the shadow work, especially like around Samhain and things like that. Um, oh, and it even says here the next one, reflect about closing cycles, death, and how everything has an end, and that is perfectly normal. So try to make yourself comfortable with that if you're not already. And then you can, like you said, walk in the woods, start decorating for fall. So start like putting your fall type of stuff out just to sort of get that energy going. Now, I also wanted to, so for recipes, we talked about the fruit pie. You could do like a fruit cake that has like the fruit and the nuts, like that would be a perfect thing. Um, Also candied almonds. That was an idea, and sauteed apples.
There's an apple and butternut squash recipe that I
Mm,
guarantee you, if you make it, and you just have to Google it. It's
yeah.
butternut squash and it's apples and brown sugar and butter, and you bake it, and it's almost like an apple pie, but you
Mm,
have squash in it. And since it's butternut squash, it's really like a nutty flavor. And with the apples, oh, I made it. You can make it vegan if you
mm,
don't use butter. You use, other oils. But I made it. My late father-in-law, my late husband's father, they told him he needed to start eating more roughage, blah blah blah, whatever. And they told him
right.
to try squash, and he went, "Yeah, that'll happen." So I told
Right.
my husband, and I said, let me make this. And it's almost like an apple pie, and smells so good. I actually served it as a dessert.
Oh,
Brought it
nice.
out and I put it on the table like a dessert because it's the baked apples with the brown sugar and the cinnamon and all that good stuff, nutmeg in it. So
Yeah.
everybody ate it like it was gone. And everybody's like, oh my God, that was so good. And my father in law says, well, I thought we were supposed to have squash tonight. And I said, you just ate 2 helpings of it. And he was like, what? And I said, that was butternut squash. Now, butternut squash is a pain to cut because it's
Sometimes you gotta trick them.
Well, I
Yeah,
didn't know.
it's like a weird like it's
It's got
like
that weird shape,
and then
but
it's
it
got
is
like badunkadunk on the
a
bottom,
very, yeah, it's got hips like we do. Real women
right?
have hips.
Butternut squash hips don't lie.
Yeah, really. Use a really sharp knife because you're going to have to cut it because
Yes.
it is major cutting. It took me forever to get this thing cut up.
I
But
have that
I was,
problem with spaghetti squash.
oh,
Some of those spaghetti squashes are so damn thick. I'm
yeah.
sorry if you hear my cats hissing and fighting with each other.
But
Um,
there's a lot you can do. I mean, this is a time of year where you need to start with your kids, start looking at like a lot of children. I grew up on a farm, so we knew all about the cycles because we knew we had to plant, we had to bring the crops in, blah blah blah. So we were on a cycle. We already knew it, but we didn't know it. So we knew, but we didn't know why we knew. This is a
right.
time where you really need to start. If you're teaching your children to be little pagans, yeah, yeah, little heathens, you need to make sure that they start learning about cycles. And if a child, and it was really weird, I grew up on a farm during the summers and when school wasn't in. I went to school in Baltimore, but I spent my summers in all in West Virginia. But in Baltimore, I noticed the kids took death and all really, really hard and didn't understand.
Oh
And
yeah.
here, I'm sitting here going, well, that's the way it is. Everybody dies because,
Right.
but I grew up on a farm and that gave me the cycle and
Well,
I
and you
know
were
it.
right, and you were exposed to that. Yeah, and you didn't realize absolutely.
And it
Um,
gave me that edge. So when there was death, it was like, okay, that's fine because someone's coming behind it.
right,
When someone
exactly.
dies, someone's born. And it was really weird because I didn't take it as hard as everybody did. Like they lose their goldfish or something, they'd be like horrified. And we were like,
Like,
okay,
"Ooh."
we'll bury it.
I was like that over a gerbil that I
It was
nice.
like, okay, we'll bury it out in the yard where we grow the tomatoes and it will help fertilize the tomatoes. So it wasn't a 21 flush salute. It was taking it out in the backyard and burying it with the tomatoes. So
Yeah.
it was a whole different way of looking at things. And when you look back on life, if you do any history reading, you will see that those that have that exposure to a
Mhm.
cycle life more or less roll with the punches because it's like, okay, this isn't going to last forever. Life is a cycle. So if you're in a bad cycle, it'll flip to a new one and it'll be a good cycle for a while. You never felt like this was it because
Yes,
the next cycle was coming. So I grew up that way, so I didn't understand. And then when I started, walking this path, I was like, oh my God, it all makes so much sense now.
I know.
But for your
Now
kid,
another thing you could do is rosemary honey shortbread.
hmm,
I found a recipe on Pinterest actually, and all it is two. Well, we're not saying it's healthy. Let's just preface that. 2 sticks of room temperature salted butter, a quarter cup of honey, 2 cups of flour, zest from one organic lemon or orange, 1 tablespoon of fresh minced rosemary, 1 pinch of dried lavender, well crumbled. And you optional goodies, it says chocolate chips or jam for making thumbprints. So you can do like, have you ever seen those thumb?
thumbprints with
Yeah.
it. Oh yeah.
And then it says tasty flavors to consider blackberry, strawberry, blueberry, or even orange marmalade and lemon curd. You want to add those after baking. But I thought that sounded really
Well, you
yummy.
know what's really good? If you grow rosemary, and I've been telling everybody to grow rosemary by your front door. I do.
Mhm.
If you let it grow, my rosemary is about, I don't know, 2 foot tall right now. Lady Angela asked me if I would cut long sticks for her because she's going to take the leaves off of it,
Mhm.
soak them, and then you use them as skewers. And that rosemary will flavor whatever you put on it. So you put chicken and your
Oh,
vegetables on the skewers, on the rosemary skewers, and cook it.
I didn't even think about that.
Well, she asked me specifically, so when I come down there in 2 weeks, I'm going to be chopping up my rosemary because it's growing like you have to keep pinching it back or you end up with a tree. I've got trees
Oh,
now, so I'm
yeah.
going to cut her a whole bunch of them. But you turn it upside down, let the leaves fall off. You use them for whatever you cook with. I mean, gosh, we use rosemary
Oh,
for
yeah.
everything, or you use it in your magical herbs. I mean, just as
And if
good.
you went over that, check that episode out.
Oh,
And you can
excuse me, I
also do
have to
like
cook with it.
I know, and you can also do like a bean soup around this time of year. There's so many different things, and don't forget about pumpkin. You do not have to wait for Halloween or Samhain for pumpkin. That is,
And those pumpkin seeds, you dry them out and roast them. I see you smiling.
yes,
Oh, I've done that
every,
one too. And that
every,
is, they are really good. And when your kids, my children nowadays don't know where really food comes from. Um,
right.
I have a silly story about one of my son's girlfriends who I was cooking dinner one night and I thought, oh, well, I'll make chicken strips, so I'm making chicken fingers. And she's like, I didn't know you could make those.
Oh, wow.
And
Gee,
it hit me because
yeah,
her mother didn't really cook, like
yeah,
homemade cook. She would buy this stuff and then just like heat it up kind of thing, where I took the chicken breast and cut it and dipped it and rolled it in the, breadcrumbs and fried it.
right.
He didn't know where it came from. And I was like, "Oh my gosh." But, little things like that, and this is the time of year where you have a little bit of time,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
where you can do this stuff and cook with the kids and have a great time. I mean, you bring a pumpkin in and you just take those pumpkin seeds and lay it out on that little platter and you stick it in the oven and goodness, at my house, I couldn't pull them out fast enough.
Yeah, I love doing that with the pumpkin seeds. I also wanted to touch on real quick. So some ideas for your Mabon altar, cornucopia, and we that's a pretty easy standard one to do. And there, even if you look online, there are all sorts of little different DIY craft cornucopia type things you can do with your kids, so that makes it even more fun. um, Apples, squash, corn, pumpkins, herbs, leaves, animal totems. Now, animals associated with Mabon are blackbirds, eagle, owl, salmon, stag, wild goose, and wolf. Um, the herbs are cinnamon, chamomile, marigold, oak leaves, rue, sage, thistle, rosemary, things like that. Um, and then the crystals are, I wanted to go over that because it also told a little bit about, okay, so clear quartz for clarity of outlook and optimism for the coming season. Amber, hold for reassurance and of prosperity and protection. Aquamarine, seek balance and harmony for this at this transitional moment in the year. Opal, reflect on the summer days and visualize what you would like to achieve in the autumn. And then there's two more. Adventurine, be mindful of the balance of male female energy acting with compassion. Now that goes right into the Thanksgiving and using a balance of, male female energy. We've talked about that before, and we'll probably do a show in the future more about that, because that I think that would be an interesting topic to go over. Um, and then lastly, citrine, appreciate the abundance enjoyed in the longer days before and count your blessings.
If you are into candle making or if you're not and want to learn, now is a great time to get those leaves. Leaf rubbings are so
Mhm.
much fun, or pressing the leaves.
I've been doing that since I was a kid. I love that. And you just get, and for those of you that don't know, you can just get a leaf, put it on a piece of paper, or
Yeah,
excuse me, put the paper on top of the leaf, excuse me, and then you can get like a crayon and rub it, and you'll have a whole imprint of the leaf with all the veins and everything.
And if you want to, when you do your candles, you can actually put those in your on the outside of the candle, not inside where it'll burn, but on the outside. And they look really pretty. And any kind of leaf imprint is kind of nice. You know, if you do your pressings, and you gather the last couple flowers. Now, this is great. You can gather your roses because this is the last time your roses are going to bloom. You
Right.
take those petals, those rose hips, you dry them or you eat them. You can make tea because we went over the rose hip tea and the rose petal tea. And now is the time when you can get those and dry them out. I mean, people don't think about it. You go out now, you get a rose, you can just lay it out and just let it dry out. I mean, it's not complicated. Just put it in the window and let the sun hit it.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we wrap up, I just want to make sure that there was nothing I was missing. Because I found a few, like I said, I found a few interesting things, but I think I did everything. The last thing I wanted to touch on here was an interesting story. Now, I never heard this, and this is a story about the origin of the name Mabon. And I, like I said, I never heard of this, but it says the name Mabon was coined for the festival during the 1970s by Aidan Kelly, and there is no evidence of the festival bearing this name before then. Mabon is a Celtic god and often referred to as the child of light. He is the son of the earth mother goddess Medron. Kelly took inspiration from classical mysteries, particularly the tale of Demeter and Persephone, and looked for a Celtic version. Mabon is stolen away from his mother at a young age, leaving her devastated, causing autumn and winter, and returns later with the help of Celtic hero Culwch. I'm not even going to attempt that. Leading to celebration, leading to spring and summer. Um, but I thought that was interesting. I never heard that
I
version.
did. Yeah, I heard that one a long time ago. A lot of our holidays and a lot of our celebrations, we try to take from history, but we have to remember most of our history is oral history, just like Native Americans. So this is the second harvest for most people we're gathering in. Now you got to remember Celtic people are up in England and their temperature's already starting to drop. So they're starting to get in their cooler span, and that's why their harvest is going to be different than ours. But if you live in upper the United States and in the upper states, you're going to start seeing where the temperature's really dropping and your crops are being brought in, that kind of thing. This is a great time for apples.
Yes, and that's what I mentioned earlier, like the apple pie. You can even do apple picking as like a part of your sort of Mabon, we talked about the trails
Yeah,
and
this is a great time. I used to like to take my kids up to an orchard where you can pick your own apples and you bring them home. There's something about the fruit that's fresh, that is grown organic. It has a much better taste to it. It may not look beautiful, but boy, when you put your mouth on it, it's awesome. Um,
yeah,
I'd rather have an old pitted apple than a nice shiny one that has no flavor to it.
I
So,
know.
and if you go around, if you start looking, your grocery stores are going to start carrying right now a lot of that stuff. Um, this is a time where if you want to start looking at maybe drying your food for the winter, people have dehydrators. This is a good time to start on that thing. If you want to be a little bit more self-sufficient, have your, stuff, your food at home kind of thing. Um,
Right.
this is when it's cooler. I used to do a lot of canning and a lot of cooking and freezing this time of year when it
Hmm.
starts to get cooler, because you have it not only just all winter, but you have it in the summer when it's too hot to stand there and can for 12 hours.
Oh,
Yeah, I hate canning. But this is a great time. Now you're looking at your berries and your fruits are coming in for the last time of the season. Jellies, jams, and if you are into making wine, this is a good time to get your fruit supplies for your wines.
absolutely.
So there's a
Um,
lot going on. It doesn't seem like it's a big holiday. It's not Samhain, it's not Yule, but it can be a holiday that you can prep yourself to start enjoying. Even if it's only just for that one day, you just take that one day out. The 22nd, I think, is in the middle of the week. It's like a Wednesday or a Tuesday.
I yeah, I think it is. I was looking the other day, but then I didn't.
I have vacation from work, so I know
Yeah,
because I'll be going up north. Actually, I'll be going up to South Carolina.
better take pictures.
Now is the time where you might want to celebrate that a little bit and think about what goes on, and just preface your kids, because this is the whole process that we're talking about. The other thing I really want to impress upon people are there are a lot of pagan prides. Pagan pride is usually September is pagan pride month, so there are tons of pagan pride. Some of them are online. I know Tennessee had theirs online last weekend.
Yep.
uh, there's a lot online.
Jacksonville,
Jacksonville is actually having it in person, not this weekend, but the 19th.
19th of September, and it's outdoor, so you
So it's
can.
outdoors. So if you're in the Jacksonville area, you can jump on Jacksonville Pagan Pride online, and they'll give you all the stuff that's going on. But in your own local neighborhood, maybe this is a time where, okay, you want to do a little bit more, but maybe you don't really feel like Thanksgiving. But hey, go to a Pagan Pride. You can
Yeah,
Zoom them. You can, if you can go in person. I'm always going to tell you, in person's a lot more fun. But
right.
this is a time when you can start looking at your pagan prides going around. There's a lot of concerts going on with the pagan prides, because most of the pagan prides, like I know Jax has Mama Gina.
Hmm.
Cloud just got back. What was it? Philadelphia Pagan Pride
I think so, and then
last weekend. Uh,
yeah,
and he's got something this weekend. Is it New Jersey or is it New York? I don't know.
I'm
He's got another one. I can't remember, but there's a lot of them going on. And this might be the time where, okay, let's go to a pagan pride and see what's going on.
yeah.
Um, if they're outdoors, you don't have to worry as much with the COVID because you're going to be outdoors. If you still feel you want to wear a mask, wear your mask. I'm a mandate mask person only because I cannot get the shot and I have underlying conditions. So I
And
still
that's okay.
going out with the pagan prides and enjoying the outdoors because it's going to be a little bit cooler,
Yeah,
isn't
I
it?
know. And it's under the bridge and on the river. It's going to be nice.
Yeah, it's cool there because 2 years ago when I went, it was nice and cool with that breeze coming in. But
Yeah.
wherever you're at, check out your local pagan prides. They're online. Just key in the name of your city and pagan pride after it, and it will pop
And
up.
yeah, and see what's going on near you. Now, I wanted to, so we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up, unfortunately, because we always have so much fun. But I did want to go ahead and do our keyword of the week.
Keyword. Oh,
So,
and we did send out our cup to who got it last time?
yes, the name slips me at the moment, but
Let me look and
yes,
see. Was it
I will
Cynthia?
double check with her and make sure she got it. But I did see that. So whoever we announced was the winner last time, I'm so sorry the name escapes me because I'm visual and there were multiple people that emailed me last time, so the winner escapes me at the moment, so I apologize. But the keyword of the week is Mabon, and you can email teatimemc at gmail.com. I had to think about that for a second. And it's teathymemc at gmail.com. And of course, the only requirement is that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, click the little bell so you can see when we're streaming live. And we also have a Facebook page. So you can also message us on Facebook, but email honestly is easier.
And
I'll
if
be on
you're in the
my
Jacksonville area,
yeah.
if you're in Jacksonville this weekend, stop by Pagan Pride because we'll
Yes,
be
we
there
will be there. We will have our little booth
live.
and we're running kids workshops all
We're
day.
doing the
So,
kids workshop. So, hey, you
woo-hoo.
want to learn how to do a workshop? Come and see us at Pagan Pride in Jacksonville. It's going to be a lot of fun. We encourage you to come out. Please support your local pagans.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of them out there. I know that there's a lot of music going on here lately. S.J. Tucker just took off with another album. Cloud just did another album.
Yeah, there's lots of cool stuff going on.
There's a lot going on in the pagan community. That now's the time to touch base. School started back in, so you're back into a routine. Take a little bit of time out and enjoy it. If nothing else, get out and just walk around the neighborhood and start to enjoy where you're at and what's going on in your neck of the woods. If
Yeah,
you have information on different things that are happening in your neighborhood and you want to send it to us, we have no problems with listing it on our Facebook page, and we'll announce it on our show. We don't have a problem with that. Now,
absolutely.
next week we're going to have a special guest on our show, and we're going to try and do a special guest once a month. So we're not going to let anything out. We're going to make you come and watch to see who it
Yeah.
is. But we've got some interesting guests lined up. And if you want to see somebody, you want to talk about somebody, there's somebody you're interested in, shoot us a line and we'll try and get in touch with that person and try and get them on. Usually,
Yeah,
we've been pretty successful with getting people online that we want online. Now,
absolutely.
since our we're taking off like gangbusters here. We're going to be at Jacksonville Pagan Pride. The following weekend, I will be traveling, so I will be on the road again. So you'll get to see me in a different background. I'll be playing. I get to play Grammy. I have one young grandson still around. My grandson's like a year older than my great grandson. My kids are far apart.
Right. Yeah. I know. That's always interesting when there's just big gaps like that.
Yeah, so I get to play Grammy for a couple days, but we'll be doing our show again. And I'm really encouraging people to let us know what's going on in your neck of the woods because everything's different. Where I'm traveling to, I'm going to find out some stuff that's going on. You'll get to see little clips if I get to see anything up there happening. But please give us a shout out. There's lots of good things going on. I know in October we were planning our illustration, which has been since canceled, but we're going to have some surprises because we're going to do some other crazy stuff. Oh, that'll be an interesting.
You'll have to stay
Yeah,
tuned. Now, I did
you'll
want to
have to stay
close out with
tuned. Yes,
I did want to close out with a Maven blessing that I found, which I thought was cute. And how could I not? Because it has, I mean, a witch with an owl. So come on.
there we go.
Ah, that's me out. Um, it says, embrace this time, the change of light, with shorter days and longer nights. The wheel has turned, the time will change, the darker side of Earth remains. There's magic in the lunar light, with intuition at its height. The alchemy of Mother Earth, from birth to death, will come rebirth. Rejoice in the season, may it fill you with peace, and may the blessings of nature for you never cease.
That was
I
beautiful.
know.
That
I
makes me
know. I had to share.
cry.
So I thought that was a perfect way to end it. So as always, you guys have been awesome. Again, keyword Maven, teatimemc@gmail.com for that. And the only thing is to just like and subscribe to our YouTube page. We do have someone exciting lined up for next week, so you'll have to stay tuned. And as always, please let us know if there's any topics, even if it's just herbs or something that you want us to cover. Please let us know.
And we hope to see, we're going to have a few clips from Jacksonville Pagan Pride while we're there. We'll try not to scare anybody. But on the show that's after the Pagan Pride, you'll get to see some of the clips from Jacksonville. So if you're having a Pagan Pride in your neck of the woods and you have some clips you want to show, hey, shoot them to us at our Facebook page or at our email, and we'll definitely get them on the show.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much again. We love you. Thank you so much always for your support, and have a wonderful week.
We'll see you next week.
Blessed be.
Blessed be.